This is our earth. We live here. The earth can survive with us as species. But this is our home, and we have to look after our home. I think it's very difficult to grasp this, but water is alive.
For me, art is about change. Art is about starting discussions. The installation is kind of a laboratory that will change depending on the water quality and what's in the water, but also human interaction, the space and the sound will affect it.
Hi, my name is Marama. The water sample that I've brought in for Whose Water Are You is taken from the Kaiati Falls, which is I think also known as Te Rere Kauau Falls. If you haven't been there, you should, because it's beautiful. There's a series of falls which kind of cascade down a ravine, and then at the bottom you've got this amazing, beautiful swimming hole.
Ko Anahira Ace, aka Veronica Gardner, o Kuingoa. Where I grew up, our family homestead is known as Te Whare o Kaura, and it is right between the Takanu stream and Maunganamu. The Takanu stream is absolutely pristine, freezing cold, beautiful little river. My earliest memories of the Takanu stream when my nanny lived there, there was a lot of swamp, a lot of wildlife and blackberries, and also in my nanny's time and my mother's time, the river had koura, which is the freshwater crayfish, and ko'aro, which is like a whitebait, but it's a really it's a climbing fish, and it's one of the most amazing little creatures that goes the most furthest inland, and the Takanu stream is at the heart of the North Island.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Mataora, my name is Mataora. The main subject today is to talk about Kaate Falls, Te Rere Kaua. The name, which is the flying shag in English, says a lot. For Māori, the shag is considered to be a spiritual guardian. So Te Rere Kaua is a sacred place to Māori. Not to mention this place was named because there was a colony that was said to be there of shag, and that's no longer there, and the importance for today is to come and let people know.
The Takanu stream is at the southern end of Lake Taupo. You might know it because right beside the Takanu stream is the Takanu power station. I remember when I was about 11 years old riding to school, and when I came home from school, the road had disappeared, and there was this, I know it seems weird, but this is my memory, there was this new bridge that had been built. In order for the Takanu power station to be built, the Takanu stream was re-diverted.
I have two children, Sam, who's now 10, and Billy, who's 8. The falls and the pools around Kaiati Falls is a place that they learnt to swim. We would swim there 2 or 3 times a week.
In the exhibit, there's 3 parts of this the stream or waterfall that I've taken the water from. You can see at the top or the upper part of the stream and above the waterfalls, it's extremely dirty and disgusting, you know, like you'll see the sample. And then in the middle, it's still somewhat after the 3-tier waterfall. It's still dirty and you can see even foam and all sorts of stuff forming on the water. Also the rainbow colours. And then after the largest waterfall at the base, you can actually see it is a little bit better, you know.
When Sam was about 6 years old, we were swimming there after school one day, and I have video footage of both of them, both Sam and Billy, jumping off the rocks into the water, and they were having such a fantastic time. Shortly after that, Sam got really sick. He had a serious case of vomiting and diarrhoea, and it went on for weeks, maybe about 3 weeks. So we went to the doctor and we had stool samples checked and things. So he had E. coli, and we just didn't know where it had come from. We were, you know, it could be something he'd eaten, something he'd touched, something he'd picked up from somewhere else. We just kind of put it down to, you know, these things happen.
You know, we've come into quite a dire times because of the pollution from the forestries, you know, the runoff, also farming culture and the practices, and also just the tourists and visitors to the area polluting and dropping rubbish. I spoke to a lot of some foreigners there, and they were astounded, you know, by the signs saying contamination. They were shocked that New Zealand wasn't potentially this 100% pure NZ.
A few weeks after that had happened, I read in the Bay of Plenty Times that the medical officer had recommended not swimming at the falls, and that the water had been contaminated by E. coli, and that it was not just from agricultural but also human faeces, which was really, really upsetting because, you know, we love that area so much, and, you know, we see how much people enjoy it and what it means to everyone.
The enormous amount of pesticides in the ground, which is leaking down to the groundwater.
The thought that we're poisoning ourselves, you know, that our environment's being poisoned, that the area, an area that is such a taonga, is being desecrated. So, yeah, I was really upset, really sad and angry. I think the other things that had happened was that, you know, I'd tell people, you know, he got sick, and we're pretty sure it did come from here. It's probably the apathy that we've had. People are like, oh God, that's so sad, that's just terrible. But, you know, this is happening all throughout our country. It makes me sad that we don't see rioting in the streets. You know, something terrible's happening. We're poisoning ourselves, our environment where we live, and yeah, most we can come up with is that's sad. You know, it's yeah. I'd love to see us do more.
Once the hydroelectric power station was built and the introduction of trout into Lake Taupo and into the rivers actually saw the loss of the koura in the Takane stream and the koaro.
So whose water is this? It's everybody's, you know, and it's very important that we all apply and add our love and care to the area. Nature can cope, but for how long? And that's the important message here.
It made me actually think about septic tanks, and crikey, when have we last had our septic tank cleaned? So we got on the phone. I was really glad that they said no, that's nowhere near full. But he also did say that he sees some really bad examples of septic tanks that have been left for such a long time. And yeah, I'd like to think some positive things came out of that as well.
Another very important thing to express here is water itself. In Māori, the word spirituality or spirit is wairua. Wai is water and rua is two. So the two waters that come together, you know, and this is a very important thing to acknowledge. Wairua, the spirit of things. I'm
glad to say that in my mother's wisdom, she has got us to go through the land courts and have Te Whare o Kauta given special reservation papakainga status, so the generations that follow can never be pushed out by others.
Māori believe that as the spirit lifts from the body, it ascends and travels north over Te Rerenga before it lifts and leaves this plane if it chooses to do so. And so that's an important thing about this land, because in here in Tauranga Moana, that's where it begins. So we first head to Te Rere Kauau and then head north and then ascend. So would your last journey away from this space like to see rubbish, like to see turmoil on its way out, or would it rather ascend through the beauty that has always been?
My name is Pachalema. I am from Ecuador. My village is called Peguche. Inti taiti kupa shutipi, alpa mamita pa shutipi, yaku mamita pa shutipi, kai pacha, ugupacha, hawapacha, shamushpa, kai nyuka pa shimikunata, kang yaikumushpa, nyuka wampalrapai. I have called my ancestors as how my parents have taught me, so to guide me to speak about the water. I really didn't want to come and talk about these issues because it's hard, because if we try to defend ourselves, it's you know, people disappeared, they get sick, or they say that something happened. For me, if I do something, maybe even before I educate my child, they somehow accident happened and I'm gone.
Kia ora, my name is Bruce. I grew up here in New Zealand. So I've been away, you know, a good part of 16 years, and we have these water issues in New Zealand. Yeah, it's sad to see that. Rivers that I swam in when I was young, you cannot swim in them anymore. Well, you can, but you might get sick. I studied at the university in Sweden, and we did a water theme. 3 lakes all in the same place, very little separating them, but 3 different, completely different pollution problems. It was quite interesting that such a small area could be affected in different ways.
So I've been in New Zealand for the past 20 years. In 25, I think. I forgot who I am and what was the principle of this water. So now I start to search for the strongness of the waters. In my country, I went back home and I see the rivers. I see many things has changed because of I think they say more money, more industrial stuff. You know, we can't drive anymore. We cannot swim. We cannot jump in the river how we used to do.
From these 3 lakes that we studied, there was a river, and there had been a lot of industry down this river. It's still quite heavy industry, but it was at some point in time it was even heavier. And industry which you think would be the heaviest, like paper works and things like that, well, it wasn't actually the problem. It was actually the companies that were making cleaning products for 30 years ago. That the chemicals were still in the ground and were leaking continuously out into the water. It changed the sex on the fish, it interrupted with their mating and all sorts of strange things.
If we change one thing, we don't know the effect on other spaces or other things we are surrounded by. We are one in this system. We are all connected. We are not separated.
I did my education in earth sciences, and already then they were talking about the pollution that was being released into the rivers in the Manawatu pharmaceutical waste that was being released. So already then there was an awareness in that, and this is over 20 years ago. In the hut where I used to work, there was a stream that was the most polluted in the Southern Hemisphere, a small stream, and it was so polluted because of a carpet company. They had just basically released everything into this small stream. I mean, rivers have always been kind of like used for transport of things, but we're just using them for transport of waste.
In other countries, like developing countries, we don't think of their resources, but their water will be our water in a year or in 2 years, because we are one system.
Most of our elders are also dying to, the protesters who looks after the water. My father was one of the protectors, and I seen him coming, and he was bleeding, and policemen running after because they were coming to get the land.
What are we leaving to our grandchildren? I'm thinking, shall I write that letter to say sorry?
That's why my dad said to me when I was young, he said, no, you go look for something else. You give a best education to your children, so one day your children will talk in their own language to what is happened. In my village, we have a beautiful, big waterfall. Underneath, there is a little cave. So, for many generations, if you need a strength, or you need a wisdom, or you need a power, so you take a flower, food like you taking to a king, you taking with all these little gifts and candle you give. And midnight, you have a cleansing in the water. They pray for you and they cleanse you everywhere in the water to give the wisdom and energy or whatever. If you need to be a magical man, can be a magical whatever wishes you're making. Even though I am in this country, I take it to the rivers. I show them there is a life, there is a spirit, to make them feel that I am a human and I make mistakes, but over there is a spirit who are alive.
Water issues has been something that we're all aware of for many years, and we're not really tackling these issues, we're just letting them on go. There is an American lawyer, environmental lawyer, Gus Speff. He thought that biodiversity loss, environmental problems, they were caused by us, but by science, and that science had all the answers to fix these things. But 30 years later, he says it's not so. It's environmental problems are caused by humans, but they're caused by greed and apathy, the lack of us doing something about it.
Maybe we have to think of a new way of living. Maybe we have to connect with our hearts. Maybe we have to live in another way in the future to survive, where we share knowledge, we learn from each other.